Are you tired of the hustle and bustle of everyday life? Are you craving a moment of peace and tranquility? Join us at Midnight Murmurs for a bedtime story that will transport you to a serene and calming environment. Nestled in a valley between two towering mountains lies a small village surrounded by lush green forests and fragrant flowers. The village pond is the perfect sanctuary for a peaceful night's rest. Like and subscribe to our channel for more soothing stories to help you unwind and drift off into a restful sleep. Once upon a time, in a world filled with chaos and noise, there existed a small village nestled in a valley between two towering mountains. The village was surrounded by lush green forests that were filled with vibrant and fragrant flowers, and the air was crisp and clean. It was a place where time seemed to stand still, and the villagers lived simple, peaceful lives. Amidst the hustle and bustle of the modern world, where technology and noise have become the norm, it's easy to forget the beauty and tranquility of nature. But in this small village, there was a place that reminded people of the peace and calm that can be found in nature. In the center of the village, there was a small pond that reflected the starry night sky. The water was calm and still, and the moon shone brightly in the water. The village children loved to play around the pond during the day, but at night, it was a peaceful and serene spot. This pond was not just a body of water, it was a sanctuary, a place where the villagers could escape from the noise and chaos of their daily lives. It was a place where they could find peace, solitude, and a sense of tranquility that was hard to come by in the outside world. And there was one villager, an old woman, who had discovered the true magic of this pond. She would come to the pond every night, after the village had settled down for the night, and sit by its banks, taking in the stillness and peace that surrounded her. She knew that this was her own personal sanctuary, a place where she could escape from the noise and chaos of the world, and find peace and calmness within herself. And so, the old woman's story is a reminder to all of us that in the midst of our busy lives, there is always a place of peace and tranquility that we can retreat to. A place where we can find solace and comfort and reconnect with the natural world around us. Nestled in a valley between two towering mountains lay a small village. The village was a hidden gem, tucked away from the hustle and bustle of the outside world. It was surrounded by lush green forests that were filled with vibrant and fragrant flowers. The air was crisp and clean, and the soft breeze that blew through the valley carried the sweet scent of the flowers to the village. The village itself was quaint, with narrow dirt roads that wound through the rows of modest homes. Each house was made of wood, with thatched roofs and colorful curtains hanging in the windows. Chickens roamed freely, and the occasional goat could be seen grazing on the side of the road. As the sun began to set, the village started to come alive with the sounds of the night. Crickets chirped, and fireflies danced in the air. The villagers slowly made their way to their homes after a long day of work in the fields. In the center of the village, there was a small pond that reflected the starry night sky. The water was calm and still, and the moon shone brightly in the water. The pond was surrounded by tall grasses and willow trees, and a small bridge crossed over the water. During the day, the village children loved to play around the pond, skipping stones and chasing after dragonflies. But at night, it was a peaceful and serene spot, the perfect place for contemplation and reflection. As the night grew darker, the village slowly became quieter, and the only sounds were those of nature. the rustling of leaves, the distant hooting of an owl, and the gentle flow of water from the nearby stream. It was a place of pure tranquility, a refuge from the chaos of the world outside. One of the villagers, an old woman, often spent her evenings by the pond, enjoying the peace and quiet. She would sit on the grassy bank, her eyes closed, listening to the sounds of nature around her. The old woman knew that this was her own personal sanctuary, a place where she could escape from the stresses of daily life and find inner peace. As the sun set behind the mountains, the village slowly began to transform. The colors of the sky shifted from bright oranges and pinks to deep purples and blues, and the sounds of the day faded away, replaced by the gentle hum of the night. The villagers finished their work for the day and made their way to their homes, leaving the village streets quiet and empty. The only sounds came from the crickets chirping and the fireflies darting through the air, leaving trails of glowing light behind them. The air grew cooler and more refreshing as the night settled in, and the sweet scent of the flowers that surrounded the village became more potent. The cool breeze carried the fragrance throughout the valley, bringing with it a sense of peace and tranquility. The villagers were used to this nighttime atmosphere, and they appreciated the calm and serenity that it brought. They knew that the darkness of the night was just as important as the light of day, and they welcomed the opportunity to rest and rejuvenate. At the center of the village lay a small pond, and as the night grew darker, it became a peaceful and serene spot. The water was calm and still, and the moon shone brightly in the water, casting a shimmering glow over everything. One of the villagers, an old woman, often came to the pond to find solace and peace. She would sit by the water's edge, watching the moon's reflection dance on the surface, and breathe in the fragrant scent of the flowers that surrounded her. The rustling of leaves and the gentle flow of water from the nearby stream were the only sounds, and the old woman found comfort in their calming rhythms. She closed her eyes and felt the cool air caress her face, imagining she was drifting on a calm sea. The old woman felt a sense of contentment and gratitude as she lay on the grassy bank, gazing up at the stars twinkling above her. She knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be, in a place that brought her peace and serenity. As she drifted off to sleep, the night's peaceful atmosphere enveloped her, lulling her into a deep slumber. The old woman knew that the nighttime was a time for rest and rejuvenation, and she welcomed the opportunity to recharge her body and soul. The nighttime atmosphere in the village was a reminder that even in the darkness, there was beauty and peace to be found. The villagers knew that the night was just as important as the day, and they embraced its calming and restorative nature. The old woman had lived in the village for as long as anyone could remember. She had seen generations come and go, watched as children grew up and had children of their own. But throughout all the changes and upheavals, there was one thing that remained constant in her life: the village pond. For years, the old woman had been coming to the pond to find solace and peace. It was her sanctuary, a place where she could escape from the noise and bustle of everyday life and simply be with her thoughts. She had sat by the pond during the hottest days of summer and the coldest nights of winter, watching as the seasons changed and the world around her shifted. As she sat there, she felt the weight of the world lift from her shoulders. She let out a sigh and closed her eyes, taking deep breaths of the cool, crisp air. The scent of the flowers filled her nostrils, and she felt her body relax. The stars twinkled overhead, and she gazed up at them, feeling the enormity of the universe stretch out before her. She imagined herself drifting among the stars, weightless and free, unencumbered by the worries and stresses of everyday life. The pond was her refuge, a place where she could find peace and quiet and a sense of belonging. She had watched as the village grew and changed around her, but the pond remained the same. It was a constant in her life, a source of comfort and stability. She knew that she would never tire of sitting by the pond, watching as the moon reflected in the water and the stars shone down from above. It was a simple pleasure, but one that brought her endless joy. As the night wore on, the old woman began to feel a sense of weariness wash over her. She knew that it was time to return to her home, to the warmth and comfort of her bed. But as she rose to her feet and turned to leave, she knew that she would return to the pond again and again. For the old woman, the village pond was more than just a body of water. It was a sanctuary, a place of peace and tranquility, a reminder that even in the midst of chaos and uncertainty, there were still moments of stillness and calm. As the sun rose over the village, the old woman opened her eyes and sat up, feeling more rested than she had in weeks. She looked around her and took in the beauty of the surroundings once more. The pond was still calm and peaceful, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of the flowers. The village was just starting to come to life, and the sounds of the day were beginning to replace the sounds of the night. The old woman knew that she had found a special place in the village. A place where she could go to escape the hustle and bustle of daily life and find a moment of peace and tranquility. She knew that she would return to the pond many times in the future, to sit and watch the stars, to listen to the gentle sounds of the water, and to feel the soft grass beneath her. As she walked back to her home, the old woman realized that the pond was not just a physical place, but a state of mind. It was a place where she could go to quiet her mind and find inner peace. And she knew that she could access that state of mind wherever she was, as long as she took a moment to close her eyes, breathe deeply, and let herself be transported to the tranquil surroundings of the village pond. From that day on, the old woman made it a priority to take time each day to find her own personal sanctuary. It didn't matter where she was, whether she was in the bustling city or the quiet countryside, she knew that she could find a moment of peace if she just took the time to slow down, breathe, and focus on the present moment. And so, the village pond became a symbol of peace and tranquility for the old woman and for all those who took the time to appreciate its beauty. It was a reminder that in the midst of the chaos of daily life, we can always find a moment of calm if we just take the time to look for it. And with that thought in mind, the old woman continued on her journey, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with a sense of calm and inner peace. Thank you for joining us for another Midnight Murmurs bedtime story. We hope that our peaceful tale of the small village nestled in the mountains has transported you to a serene and tranquil state of mind. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more soothing tales to help you drift off into a restful sleep. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again soon on Midnight Murmurs.